أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the third session, Live a Meaningful Life in Pursuit of IHSAN. And today we're going to discuss the concept in quantum physics called entanglement. Today I want to start, inshallah, just with a small analogy and then use the scientific concepts in the Quran to see how they fit in with the analogy. So, if, for example, one of us receives an invitation from a great and powerful king to enter into a contest, and with the notice you informed that this contest is about taking a cake, very basic cake, and part of the contest is for you to ice and decorate and enhance the taste of this cake. And if the cake meets the approval of the king, then you will be awarded a great estate in the kingdom of this great and powerful king. And when you accept the invitation and come to this the king's kingdom, you find many people already there. Each one has been given the same cake and tasked with the same responsibility. You then informed that this cake has to meet certain requirements in order to be approved and acceptable to the king. And this cake is issued to all people entering into the contest. And for our purposes, we're going to call this cake a qalb. Qalb in Arabic is a heart. And so for our story, we're calling this cake a qalb. And the coordinators inform you that this cake needs to meet certain requirements. And in order to learn the requirements, you need to enter an institute. And this institute is called Darul Islam, the Institute of Islam. And at this institute, you learn that first of all, upon acceptance of the challenge, you must accept the king as the one and only and final arbiter, first of all. Second of all, you need to ice this cake. And the icing of this cake is called salah. And you have to add a few other seasonings called zakah and siyam and hajj onto your cake. And if your cake meets these requirements, your application will be considered, or your cake will be considered, but you're not guaranteed victory in the contest. In order for that to happen, you need to go to a second institute. And this second institute is called Darul Iman. And here you're going to learn the finer points about decorating your cake and all the do's and don'ts that the king expects in his kingdom. But even this, graduating from this academy doesn't necessarily guarantee you. It significantly strengthens your chances, but it doesn't guarantee you that you will win the prize. In order for that to happen, you need to go to the third institute, which is called Darul IHSAN. And if you graduate from this institute, you will be from the Muhsinin. Now, very important in this institute, you learn the purpose why the king is actually holding the contest. And here you learn, first of all, that this king has magical powers, and all the ingredients of the cake are made from some very special magical ingredients. First of all, the ingredients used in the cake are responsive to one's thoughts and to one's actions and to one's speech. That means if you expose your cake to beautiful actions, then obviously it will enhance the taste. And if you expose it to distasteful actions or speech or thoughts, it's going to affect the taste of the cake. So irrespective whether you're putting the icing on the cake and you're putting the seasoning called salah and zakah and siyam and hajj onto the cake, if you don't have this component of ihsan, your cake is not going to have the required taste. Now, when we look today around us, we find two kinds of people, and we're talking from amongst the believers or the Muslimin. We find some people that are just satisfied with the first part of the first institute of just the prescribed parts of Islam. And then we get some people that are interested only in the ritualistic aspects of Islam. But if you graduate from the third institute, we find that really speaking, what the king is looking for is the finest contestant, not the finest cake. Because if the cake tastes good, it's an indication that the contestant is of a certain caliber. And then he can enter into the estate of the king. And this essentially is similar to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from us. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ is sent as the example of ihsan. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And the Prophet ﷺ خَيْرُكُمْ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. And the Prophet ﷺ further said, he said, وَإِيَّاكُمْ بِالْإِحْسَانِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And I exhort you towards ihsan. Indeed, Allah loves the people of ihsan. So what we're learning from this analogy is that really if we want to benefit ourselves and to be successful in this test of this dunya, then there has to be a change in the way we behave, in the way we guard our thoughts, in the way we guard our speech, and in the way we guard our actions. And the external parts of worship, while being very important, are of no benefit to us if we are not excelling on the social level. That means with our fellow human beings, family, friends, and humanity and creation in general. So if we're looking at this analogy, we find that basically we are entangled or in some kind of contact with the ingredients of the cake. And we need to see whether the world we're living in functions on this similar system. And so this brings us to the study of entanglement. And basically entanglement, quantum entanglement, is two particles get linked by some unknown connection, unknown to science. But irrespective of the distance between these two particles, there is some unseen instant connection between them. Now, entanglement is a real phenomenon, and it's around for about 100 years. In fact, Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But one of the main proposed theories of entanglement is that all things that stem from a common source are all linked. Now, this is very important. It means if we all created from one common source, from a common ingredient, then somehow we'll be all linked. Science can't explain it, but there is some form of a link between all of us. Now, basically, this is 2 electrons, and this is what scientists are discovering, that these subatomic particles, wherever they may be in the universe, once they entangle, what you do to the one instantly affects the other. And it's a phenomenon that's been measured by scientists. In September of 2013, scientists in Shanghai took 2 photons and split them and put them about 23 kilometers apart. And what they did to one instantly happened to the other. And when they measured the speed at which this connection took place, it was 10,000 times faster than the speed of light. And why 10,000? That was the maximum the instrumentation could measure. If they had a measurement that could measure higher, it would be faster. And so scientists are starting to catch up now with terminology, and they're coming with all kinds of explanations. And what they're saying, one of it that you see there, is that in order to be entangled, there must be a wormhole. That means somehow you bridge space and time and you have a connection between the 2 particles. But what is interesting, in 2005, scientists were able to entangle about 13 atoms. And 10 years later, they can now do 3,000. That means in 2005, the maximum they could do was 13, and in 2050 now it's 3,000. So even in the scientific community, they are improving and becoming familiar with this concept of entanglement. Now we'll just have to test something with the Quran, because if we making a proposition that everything in the universe is entangled, then first of all it would mean everything has to come from a common source. And so we look at the Quran. Allah says in Surah Al-Anbiya verse 30, أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا. Have those who disbelieve not known that the heavens and the earth were joined? It means they were one. فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, and so we separated them. So that's the first thing the Quran is confirming, that we come from a common source. And then more importantly, Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And then we made from water every living thing. That means all living things have another common source. So we connected 2 ways. أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Will you then not believe? So first of all, we come from a common source at the beginning of creation, and then all living things come from another common source, which is water. Now, what is important with entanglement? First of all, to understand that if we all coming from a common source and there is communication, there has to be some form of exchange of information. There has to be some platform which is common to all the creatures and particles which came from this common source. Otherwise, there can't be an exchange of information. Now, also what it demands is that it demands, first of all, necessitates a creator, first of all, and that the creator has to have knowledge of everything if he's going to facilitate the communication and the exchange of information between everything in the universe. And again, the Quran, we look to the Quran, Allah says, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. That only with Allah are the keys to the unseen. لا يعلمها إلا هو. No one knows it except Him. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. And He knows what is on the land and in the sea. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. And not even a leaf falls without His knowledge. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ. And not even a grain in the darkness of the earth. وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ. Whether it's fresh or dry, except it's in a clear book. But what does this really mean? I mean, can we imagine what Allah is passing over to us, the depth and the extent of what is included in this statement?
Could something as complicated as a human being ever be computer simulated? The characters we play with in video games have come a long way over the years, from bodies made of crude pixelated blocks to increasingly lifelike versions of ourselves. But even the most realistic avatars only look real on the outside. Could we ever build a body from the inside out? cell by cell? And could that simulated person be an exact copy of a flesh and blood human? Stephen Larson wants to build the world's first fully digital animal, a perfect replica of its biological counterpart. He's starting small.
All around the world, you can find a 1 millimeter long worm, much smaller than a typical earthworm. This barely visible worm is known as C. elegans. Now, it may seem insignificant, but this little guy has the distinction of being one of the most thoroughly studied animals in all of biology and neuroscience.
Stephen and his colleagues are compiling decades of research about this tiny worm in order to create the world's most realistic computer-generated creature.
It only has about 1,000 cells, 959 to be exact, and only 302 neurons, about 95 body-wall muscle cells.
That sounds easy enough to build, but it's not. Each cell needs to run its own specific computer code, and all the pieces of code must function together just as the connected cells do. When finished, it won't just look real, it will act real. It will seek virtual food, produce virtual waste, and create virtual offspring. And making it will not be child's play. This little remote-controlled car only has about 1/10 as many parts as C. elegans.
Now here, we have a full-size car, made of thousands of parts, including computers and wiring. It does all sorts of complex things, like navigation, air conditioning. It has lights.
A worm's components are interconnected, just like those of a car.
In our worm, in addition to building muscle cells and nerve cells, we're also creating models of how muscle cells work together and how the nervous system should work. Then we can connect the muscle cells to the nervous system. Now, when we do that, this may be the result. Nothing, because of all the complex interactions.
But if Stephen and his colleagues precisely simulate every cell of C. elegans and get all those individual programs working together, this computerized worm will do something no car can. It will live and act completely under its own control.
It's a much bigger challenge than just programming flashy video game characters that look like real-life approximations of creatures. If we wanted to, we could already program a C. elegans and make it look like it can do all sorts of amazing things.
So far, Stephen and his colleagues have written programs for some of the worm's muscle and nerve cells. But they're still working on code to simulate the complex electrical and chemical interactions between them.
So we still have a lot of work to get everything built, wired, and connected together so that our virtual worm will behave just as a real biological worm.
Then the stage will be set to work on more complex features. A human is made up of trillions of cells. So creating one biologically accurate computer-generated person would be like wiring together all the parts in more than 100 million cars.
It may take many decades or even centuries, but I believe that one day we should be able to build virtual versions of ourselves that are like us in every way.
Okay, now let's just understand what's being said here. If we take the human body, it's made of 100 trillion cells. And basically, it first of all means that each cell has to have its own code. And then as each cell gathers together into a muscle or into a nerve, then it needs a separate code. And as it gets to a tip of a finger, it needs another code. And half a finger, another code. And a full finger, another code. And to a hand or a left hand, another code. A right hand, another code. So just in creating one human being, we need hundreds of trillions or billions of trillions of codes. That's the information that goes into one human being. And if everything in the universe is entangled, we can imagine how many codes need to be in operation for that to happen. This just gives an understanding. When we say Allah knows everything, what kind of knowledge we're talking of? You know, because we still think that there's things we can do that can escape Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we're just looking at a simple worm that the best programmers in the world can't put together, what about a human being like us? And then too, we're not even talking from the cellular level, we still have to get to the molecular level. And then you need more coding. And from the molecular level, you need to go into the atomic level, and that's more coding. And then from the atomic level to the subatomic level, and that's more coding. So never mind few centuries, humans are probably thousands of years away from being able to do the programming for even one human being. So, two things I want to take from this verse in the Quran. First is that ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَوَدُّخَانًا, that Allah rose towards the skies and it was cloud, it was smoke. But now if we're understanding what we looked at, the programming thing, is that we now understand, a little better maybe, that at a cellular level you can have one program. As things become more compound and more complex, they form into greater or larger singular atoms. Just like small cells will form a finger, and the finger into a hand, and the hand into an arm, and the arm into a torso, and into a body. So similarly, as things form together, you could get the earth, for example, becoming one cell, having one programming for the entire earth, one for the entire heavens. And when we look at this verse in the Quran, Allah is talking to the earth and the heavens as if they are two separate single cellular creations. Allah is saying, قَوْلَ لَا وَلِلْأَرْضِ إِتِيَا تَوْعًا أَوْ كَرًا, will you come willingly or unwillingly? And they reply, قَوْلَتَا أَتَيْنَا طَوْعِئِينَ, we will come willingly. Now, previously people may have thought that this is just some kind of silly verses in a book, na'udhu billah. But now as we're progressing, we're finding that this is cutting edge science. This is the power of this book. And let's look at another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says, when the son of Adam wakes up, all the body parts bow to the tongue and say, ittaqillaha fina, fear Allah concerning us. فَإِنَّمَا نَحْنُ بِكَ, look at this, because indeed we are with you, meaning we are entangled with you. But now we can understand how there can be a communication between the tongue and other cells if we understand coding. If a few years or 50 years ago somebody seen this hadith, they may have said, look, what kind of backward people these Muslims are. They're talking of organs talking to the tongue. I mean, these are things from fairy tales. But now that the world is progressing, we find that science is catching up with our tradition. And so they're saying to the tongue, فَإِنِ اسْتَقَمْتَ اسْتَقَمْنَا, if you straight, we straight. وَإِنِ إِعْوَجَجْتَ إِعْوَجَجْنَا, and if you crooked, then we crooked. And it's coming back to the thing about the ingredients of the cake. That if we're not keeping ourselves in order, it doesn't matter what icing and things we're putting on, we're going to find ourselves corrupted from the inside out. Very important to understand that. And then when we say that whoever provides the platform for the exchange of information, nothing should be hidden from him. He needs to know everything. And the Quran will again confirm for us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, that nothing is hidden from Allah in the heavens or in the earth. And this is a verse we did in our double slit experiment, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whatever وَمَا تَكُونُ فِي شَأْنٍ, whatever you may be doing, وَمَا تَتْلُ مِنُّ مِنْ قُرْآنٍ, whatever portion of the Quran you are reciting, وَلَا تَعْمَلُونَ مِنْ عَمَلٍ, whatever action you're busy with, إِلَّا كُنَّا عَلَيْكُمْ شُهُودًا إِذْ تُفِيدُونَ فِيهِ, except we witnesses over it when you're doing it. And then Allah says, وَمَا يَعْزُبُ رَبِّكَ مِنْ مِثْقَالِ ذَرَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, and nothing escapes Allah, not even the weight of an atom in the heavens and the earth. وَلَا أَصْغَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ وَلَا أَكْبَرَ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ, and nothing smaller or bigger except it's in a clear book, because entanglement cannot take place if all these variables are not decreed and measured out and known. So now we understand information. The next important thing we need to look at is light. Now, the first important thing is a new field in science called biophotonics research. And it's pioneered by that gentleman you see there, Dr. Alfred Fritz Popp, a German physicist. And in essence, what biophotonic research is saying is that every single living system emits light and absorbs and stores light. Every living cell emits at least 100,000 photons per second. Now, what is important about this is, first of all, is that our skin is a photoreceptor. It takes light from the sun, converts it to vitamin D, and its technology is light. But if we're emitting 100,000 photons per second, then we are generating information, coding 100,000 different codings each second. And in biophotonic research, basically what they found that when you have a nice balanced, coherent frequency, that indicates a healthy body. And when you have incoherency, it indicates an unhealthy body. So coherency indicates health, and chaotic light or incoherency indicates illness. So basically, when we look at light, first of all, scientists are discovering now that light stores information. And if we're emitting light 100,000 per second, we are emitting information, coding into the world around us. What scientists have also discovered is that light has connection to the cells in your body. It can regulate the production of insulin, your heart rate, all kinds of health issues. And this one here, when you look at that picture of a cat, this is very interesting because what scientists did was they basically fired a photon and split it. We know that from our previous ones that when you split two photons, they remain entangled. And what they did was they sent one photon down a path. And in the path of the first photon, they put an image of a cat. And in the path of the second photon, there was no image. Okay? And what they did was, the one in whose path there was no image, they captured that photon. And the other one, they let it just go wherever it's supposed to go. And when they looked at the one that didn't pass through the image, they found the picture, the image that its partner photon passed through. So why this is important, if you emitting 100,000 photons per second, you literally gathering information and emitting information every single second of your life and my life. And so when we look at this picture of ours, and we look at on the right-hand side the green wavelengths, that's coherency. And that's carrying a particular kind of information and coding with it. And when we look at the one on the left-hand side, the red one, that's incoherency or chaotic light, and that's carrying also kind of coding with it. So literally, we're coding into our bodies and we're coding into everything around us. And when we look at this exchange of information, apart from us as we build up into a body, a family can build into a unit, and a town can build into a unit, and a country can build into a unit, and an ummah can build into a unit. This is why the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Muslimuna ka-rajulin wahidin. And interesting, very interesting, that the Prophet ﷺ says the Muslims, he doesn't say the mu'min. He says, Al-Muslimuna ka-rajulin wahidin, that the Muslims are like one body. In ishtaka ainuhu, ishtaka kulluhu. If the eye pains, all of it pains. Wa in ishtaka ra'suhu, ishtaka kulluhu. And if the head pains, everything pains. So if we in contact with each other as we should be, then this would be our condition. And I just put a small picture here. If you look at this green stuff with the blue around it, that is contamination, radioactive contamination, which you can pick up only with a particular kind of camera, but it's there. And this is the kind of thing we could be giving off. We could be contaminating ourselves, our children, our food, our clothing, the plants in our house, the environment around us. And maybe we see that we praying 5 times a day and we're doing certain things and we consider ourselves safe. But if we don't have this quality of ihsan, then there's no safety for us. The next important thing now is to look at consciousness, because consciousness is the emission of light or energy. And this is a random number generator. A simple experiment they do in neuroscience is that they get people to focus on a machine just like this. And this machine is a simple machine. It just kicks out numbers, zeros or ones. And when they get people to concentrate on more zeros than ones, then this machine, which is not connected to anything, somehow generates more zeros than ones. And when they take a machine like this and they put it on the other side of the planet, and they get a group of people to concentrate, they find that it affects whatever this random event generator is generating. And the more people they put into focus on this, the more accurate the readings, which could be one of the wisdoms of Jama'ah for us, and for gathering for Jum'ah on a Friday, and gathering as an Ummah once a year. But what we're taking from this is that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to do is only good for ourselves. Now there's another video after this, I'm not going to play it because it takes a bit of time, but basically I'll tell you what it's about. Basically what scientists have done now is to experiment and searching for these connections. And what they've done in one of the universities in Canada is they've taken 2 test subjects and put them into 2 different rooms and connected them up with a magnetic frequency. And then they shine a light to the person in the one room. And whenever this person detects the light, the person in the other room, their brain activity reflects the same movement like this person in the first room, although the person in the second room hasn't seen it. And what scientists are now beginning to discover is that magnetic fields are able to transmit information from one person to another. Now, what's important about this whole thing is that, well, this is just part of the test, what they do. I'm just going to skip it. But what is important for us is that the Earth has a magnetic field which protects us against the harmful radiation from the sun. And this magnetic field permeates the entire Earth. And this scientists believe may be somehow the way we communicate at a subconscious level. One of the openings they got was with this bird, this European robin. They found that it has in its eye a protein called cryptochrome, which allows it to entangle with the Earth's magnetic field. But what they also found, other birds, in their beaks have a thing called magnetite, which connects it to the Earth's magnetic field. Now, what's very interesting is that they found that the human being has that exact same magnetite in his brain, and that the magnetic field of the Earth has an effect on the human being. And what they found is that if you face the human being in certain directions, it has certain effects on him. If he sleeps north to south, for example, it affects his rapid eye movement sleep. If you point him towards a certain direction, it affects the blood sugar level. And now we can probably, when we get to the next sections and go more in depth in this, look at the wisdom of facing a certain direction when we pray. That many people standing in one direction and all facing to a certain direction. And scientists are starting to find that that has a biochemical effect on the body. So you can just see here, in normal subjects facing north, the EEG was reduced considerably. So there is some merit in this theory that we are connected to each other via the Earth's magnetic field. Now, just on consciousness, just to drive home my point, you can see what that thing is saying. It says, your clothes were praying, were you? Because many of us are in the masjid, but is there ihsan in our prayer? We're giving charity, but is there ihsan in the charity? The most important thing is this internal ingredients inside of us. If we're going to judge ourselves and judge others by only what we see on the outside, we are going to fall short in this contest of trying to earn our estate from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And remember, we said in our last thing that everything is made up of subatomic particles. And when we see that our thoughts, our consciousness affect subatomic particles, then we realize that we actually affect everything in the universe. The next important things we have to look at is sound. And scientists are beginning to discover that they can diagnose diseases with sound. That means even the blood cell or blood cells in your body have unique sounds. It has its own coding. It's carrying its own information. They are able to separate cells with sound, using them as tweezers. They can sort out cells with sounds. This is very important when we later on, inshallah, get to sound, because if your cells can be sorted out with sound, imagine the effect of Quran on the cells in your body. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we have not revealed this Quran except as a shifa, as a cure and a mercy for the believers. وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. And the wrongdoers, it doesn't increase them in anything except loss. So we can just extrapolate from this the power of the Quran, also the power of good words. A generous word, a kind word, the Prophet ﷺ said, Kalimatu tayyibatu sadaqah, is a charity. And it can have a physical effect on our bodies. And they looking at the amazing effects sound has on the human brain. So when we come to sound, we now have to just look a little further and look at the Quran and see what important sound has for us. The one thing I want us to just extract from this is that when we're looking at what we are looking at entanglement, it's first of all showing us the power and the capacity Allah has imbued each of us with. And literally we have the ability to affect the universe. It doesn't matter whether you are a professional or a businessman or a housewife. Each one has an equal opportunity to be effective, not in your home or in your town, but literally in the universe. And all you need is to generate this component called IHSAN. This is the measure of person, not your bank balance, not the brand of clothing we're wearing or the car we're driving, but the IHSAN we're generating. This is the only thing that's going to benefit us. Let's just look at this verse in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ. Allah says, and we created the heavens and the earth with truth. Meaning, the fabric, the cement, the building material of the universe is truth or light. And Allah is going to clarify for us, وَيَوْمَ يَقُولُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. And when He's going to recreate it on Judgment Day, He's going to say, be and it is. Because this universe was created with the word of Allah. And the word of Allah is light. And it's truth. So, when we understand this, that the universe is held together by truth, now the importance of speech has to start making itself relevant in our day-to-day lives. So let's look at this now. When we look at the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created the heavens and the earth with truth. Now we go to another verse. Allah says in the Quran, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا. And they, meaning the Jews and the Christians, they say Allah has taken a son. Now this is probably one of the greatest untruths, not in the universe. In fact, it is the greatest untruth because you're associating partners with Allah, and this is the only thing Allah doesn't forgive. So let's see the effect of this. Allah says, لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا. You have come with a terrible thing. And this is the part I want to focus on. تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ. The heavens are almost torn apart. وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ. And the earth is almost split. وَتَخِيرُ الْجِبَالُ هَدًّا. And the mountains almost fall down in destruction. Why? أَنْ دَعُوا لِرَحْمَانِ وَلَدًا. Because of this one word that they uttered, that Allah is a son. It has cosmic effect. This is showing you the connection we have with the entire universe, that there is no insignificant person. That whether you are a housewife or a worker in a store, irrespective of your vocation, irrespective of your financial situation, irrespective of your age, every single human being has been vested with the power to be relevant to this universe. And then let's look, how many of us, while striving to become religious, we become lax with our speech and our thoughts and our actions. And Allah doesn't speak vainly. Look at this verse of the Allah says, قَالَ رَبِّي يَعْلَمُ الْقَوْلَ فِي السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah knows every spoken word. You just utter something, Allah knows it. In the heavens and the earth. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And He's all hearing and He's all knowing. Nothing escapes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not even that one word. And Allah again says, إِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْجَهْرَ مِنَ الْقَوْلِ. He knows what is spoken, what is loud in your voices. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تَكْتُمُونَ. And what you quiet. Sometimes maybe someone comes to visit quietly, you say to yourself, I don't know why this guy came. Allah is saying, I know that also. But if that is your situation, you're contaminating yourself. If you're quietly whispering to somebody about someone else, you're harming yourself. So let's look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's closeness to us, His entanglement with the human being. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. Indeed, we created man. وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. And we know what he whispers to himself. It doesn't have to come even to speech and articulation, but Allah knows it. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلٍ وَرِيدٍ. And we're closer to Him than His own jugular vein. And this is, look at this beautiful, Allah says, إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانِ. When the two receivers receive, عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٍ. They're sitting on your two sides. These two receivers, what are they doing? مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. A lafz in Arabic is an utterance. You just made one sound. Allah is saying you don't even make one sound except there's a watcher ready to write. He's not just a scribe, he's a watcher also, because nothing escapes him. Anything you do, he's ready to record it. And why is this important? Why should we become cognizant of this fact? Here's the wisdom. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. That the pangs of death are coming. Then you will know the importance of the things we're talking. ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. This is the thing you were avoiding, or the thing you were fearful of. So become more aware and conscious of the way we conduct ourselves. And Allah says, يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ. Allah knows the defraud. You know, sometimes you look at them and say, look at that guy. Allah knows that. وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. And what you're hiding. You see someone, you think you're better than them, Allah knows that. So we all have to become cautious of the way we behave. Now, next thing we're going to look at, we're looking at consciousness of other life forms, because we're making a statement here, a proposition, and we're saying that all things are connected. And so the first thing we're going to look at is, remember in the previous, one of the previous ayat, we said, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. Allah says, and we created from water all living things.
To us, a glass of water seems still and lifeless. But on the molecular scale, it is pulsing with activity. Water changes its molecular structure around 1 trillion times per second. Whenever the molecular structure of water changes, the overall chemical properties of water also change. No other liquids on Earth can do this. Water molecules respond to temperature and the chemicals they come in contact with, almost as if the water is aware of its surroundings. For Anders, this property blurs the distinction between a chemical and a living thing.
Some people might think that a glass of water could be alive. My personal view of life is that it's related to something that has consciousness on some sort of level. And the question is, if that is the case with water, and we can't say yes or no.
Whether or not a glass of water is alive, water itself is still the essence of all life that we know of. About 60% of your body is water. Cells with your DNA call it home, along with about 1,000 unique species of bacteria. The ocean ecosystem is also mostly water and home to millions of life forms. Could ocean water and the life that calls it home collectively be a living thing? Is a life form that large even possible?
So this is another thing we need to ponder in terms of the importance of water. First of all, covering 70% of the planet, and it's conscious and storing information, and that our body is 70% water and storing and recording information. And yeah, Allah again says, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَ كُلَّ دَابَةٍ مِّن مَاءٍ. That Allah has created every moving creature from water. Now when we look at, generally we're looking at other forms of consciousness and creation. When we look at certain plants, maple trees for example, when they are attacked by a predator, and there's a whole group of maple trees, if only one tree is being attacked or being eaten, all the others will initiate countermeasures. It means somehow the first one has sent a message to all the others. It means they have their own system of communication. Plants they've discovered, when they put them even in the dark and isolate them, they're still able to communicate with each other. What they found, you can see their voicemail discovered in nature. What they found that insects, if an insect comes to a plant and it finds that that plant has certain defense mechanism, what it does is it leaves a chemical signal in the soil. So the next insect from its species comes there, it'll be able to read that message and say, be careful, these plants have these defense mechanisms. Now these we look at later. We're just trying to establish our basis for entanglement. And then we look at bacteria. And you saw in that clip of the water that human beings have 1,000 species of bacteria in them. But they've noticed that the bacteria itself communicates. And we know food, yogurt for example, has bacteria. It has language, it has exchange of information. So maybe when we say Bismillah when we eat the yogurt, what coding has happened between us and the bacteria in the yogurt, for example? What they found is that plants can communicate with each other. When they take a chili tree, for example, and plant only one, it doesn't grow as well when they give it a partner. And the same thing with basil trees. So they're actually social. And this is very important for us, that if we start isolating ourselves, we will not be able to develop holistically. If plants can't do it and human beings are greater social beings, then imagine the importance for us. And again, we just see biologists discover bacteria communicate like brain and neurons in the brain. So does this mean that everything in nature glorifies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Of course, Allah says, وَمَا مِن دَابَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And there is not a single creature on the earth. وَلَا طَائِرُ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحِهِ. And not even a bird that flies with its two wings, إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ. Except its communities like you, مَا فَرَطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And nothing has been neglected in this book. And then remember we said from our coding that organisms that as they become larger also have a single cellular nature. And so Allah is saying, تُسَبِّحُ لَهُ السَّمَاوَاتُ سَبْعُ. The seven heavens, وَالْأَرْضُ, and the earth glorify Allah. وَمَنْ فِيهِنْ, and whatever is in them also. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. And there's not a single thing except it glorifies Allah. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. And you do not understand its glorification. إِنَّهُ كَانَ حَلِيمًا غَفُورًا. Allah is compassionate and is forgiving. And this is a very powerful verse in the Quran. Allah says, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَسْجُدُ لَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If you've not seen it, every single thing, or whoever is in the heavens and the earth prostrates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah elaborates, وَالشَّمْسُ and the sun, وَالْقَمَرُ and the moon, وَالنُّجُومُ and the stars, وَالْجِبَالُ and the mountains, وَالشَّجَرُ and the trees, وَالدَّوَابُ and all the living creatures, وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ and much of men, وَكَثِيرٌ حَقَّ عَلَيْهِ الْعَذَابِ. وَكَثِيرٌ حَقَّ عَلَيْهِ الْعَذَابِ. But many of them have justified punishment upon themselves. And then Allah says, وَمَن يُهِنِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِن مُكْرِمٍ. And whoever Allah humiliates, for him you can find no one to honor him. See? Something. No? Okay, no. So what we see is that human beings have been given the ability to entangle with everything in creation. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Indeed, we have created man in the best stature. Why? Because he has the ability to affect everything in the universe. And then Allah says, ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. But if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, then we render him to the lowest of the low, even lower than the animals. So let's just look at this now. If, say, for example, a woman cooking at home, and a woman all cooking and preparing for Ramadan and probably saying that these men are sitting at work or sitting at their meetings and enjoying themselves, we slaving, making the samosas and the pies and the half moons. Is that all in vain? I mean, do we have a doubt that we're not known or famous amongst the creatures of the earth? Let's look at this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Two men were mentioned before the Prophet ﷺ. One of them a worshipper and the other a scholar. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, the superiority of the scholar over the worshipper is like my superiority over the least of you. Then the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, indeed Allah, His angels, the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, even the ant in his hole, even the fish, say salah upon the one who teaches people to do good. And this precludes nobody. If you're teaching your child something, this applies to you. If you're teaching a friend, you're teaching a child, you're teaching colleagues, all this is applicable to us, insha'Allah. And look at the connection that Allah has blessed us with. And this is why Allah is making that statement, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ التَّقْوِيمِ. And we know from this hadith we discussed previously that the Prophet ﷺ, when he was walking through Mecca, every rock was saying, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. And the palm tree that wept when the Prophet ﷺ stopped leaning against it. And the hadith says, when the Prophet ﷺ put his hand on it to pacify it was still gasping like a child gasps when it's weeping. And we know of the camel that complained to the Prophet ﷺ that its master was ill-treating it and overworking it. So what we have to understand is that ultimately all this is important because we are, first of all, apart from being entangled with everything around us, we are entangled with ourselves. Most important. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ says, for example, the slave continues to lie and a black spot grows in his heart until all his heart becomes black. Then he's written in Allah's sight amongst the liars. This is the importance of speech. Another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, when a believer commits sin, a black spot appears on his heart. If he repents and he gives up the sin, then Allah will erase it. But if he continues, then this blackness, darkness will increase and it becomes, like Allah says, كَلَّا بَلْ رَوْنَا عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Indeed, their hearts are covered with rawn. It's like tar, something that is very difficult to remove because of the deeds that we have done. And then most importantly in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنُ. That what is halal is clear. وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنُ. And what is haram is clear. وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ. And between them are these doubtful matters, the grey areas. لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Most of mankind are not aware of them. Now here's the thing, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ. But whoever stays away from what is doubtful, فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. He indeed safeguards his religion and his honor. وَمَنْ وَقَعْ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعْ فِي الْحَرَامِ. But whoever falls into what is doubtful, he falls into haram. This is a warning for us that like to walk. You know, we have two things. We can either aim for fatwa or taqwa. And nowadays everyone aims for fatwa. We want to be on that middle line. And no one goes for taqwa, especially when it comes to finance. When it comes to finance, everybody wants fatwa. We want compliance, Sharia compliant. Nobody wants Sharia. Let us stay away from the haram things. But look at the hadith saying, if you fall into that, you fall into haram. كَرَاعِي يَرَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى. Like a shepherd that grazes the sheep on the sanctuary of another. يُوشِكُ أَن يَرْتَعَ فِيهِ. Any moment he can enter the property of that king. And here's the important part. The Prophet says, أَلَا فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةٌ. Beware that in this body is a piece of flesh. إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. If it is sound, the whole body is sound. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ. And if it is corrupt, The whole body is corrupt. Ala wa hiya al-qalb. And this is the heart. And this is the important thing we need to take home from this thing today, is that if we're guarding our hearts, then indeed we are set on the road to success. And if this science and this philosophy is absent in our understanding and in our day-to-day lives, then we're going to find ourselves in difficulty. And this is just the end. And this is why it's so important to guard it. Allah says, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوهَا. Then when they reach it on Qiyamah, meaning hellfire, شَهِدَ عَلَيْهِمْ سَمْعُهُمْ وَأَبْصَارُهُمْ وَجُلُودُهُم. Their ears and their eyes and their skins. So imagine we are even entangled with our skins. And the skin has its own personality and its own code and its own identification. وَجُلُودُهُم بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. They're going to bear testimony against us for what we did. And then we're going to say now, وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ. We're going to say to our skins, لِمَ شَهِدْتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. Why are you testifying against me? You're part of me. قَالُوا أَنْتَقَنَا اللَّهُ الَّذِي أَنْتَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. The one that has given everything the ability to speak, has coded information into everyone, has allowed me to give up my information today. وَهُوَ خَلَقَكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. And He created you the first time. وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. Allah is reminding us that you're going to come back. And here's the important thing. وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَتِيرُونَ. And you will not be able to hide from us. أَيْ يَشْهَدَ عَلَيْكُمْ سَمْعُكُمْ وَلَا أَبْصَارُكُمْ وَلَا جُلُودُكُمْ. You'll not be able to hide because your ears and your eyes and your skin are going to testify against you. وَلَكِنْ ظَنَنْتُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَعْلَمُ كَثِيرًا بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. But you thought lots of the things you were doing, Allah didn't know about it. وَذَلِكُمْ ظَنُّكُمُ الَّذِي ظَنَنْتُمْ. And this is the thought, or this thought that you thought about Allah, بِرَبِّكُمْ أَرْدَاكُمْ. This thing has brought you to your destruction. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. And now you have become of the losers. So entanglement is a very large subject. I think we probably have another one session after this or two. But this is just the introduction because it has lots of the information and the understanding for us to move forward. Jazakallah.